Welcome back. An interview you'll see only on Fox. Savanah Nabors is speaking out for the first time since the end of a long legal battle with former Greenville County Sheriff Will Lewis. She accused the sheriff of sexual assault and harassment.
Now, those accusations led to a SLED investigation and ultimately the indictment and conviction of Lewis, who's now serving a year in prison on a misconduct charge. Fox Carolina's Carrie Weimer talks with Savanah Nabors about life after Lewis.
You want to go see the animals?
These days, life is a little slower for Savanah Nabors.
I am taking care of my daughter and trying to just, be the best mom I can be. That's my #1 goal every day.
She tells us the last couple of years have been the hardest of her life. In 2017, she published a blog post in which she accused someone in a position of power of sexual assault. We later came to find out that person she was accusing was then Sheriff Will Lewis. Soon after, a SLED investigation began. Eventually, a grand jury indicted Lewis. This also catapulted Nabors into the court of public opinion.
That has been my toughest battle through this whole thing, is trying to figure out whose opinion to weigh, because I put so much weight on myself at first and blamed myself that it's easy for me to look at other people and say, well, maybe they were right, this is all my fault. But that's not true, and I've had to really sink down to the truth of the matter.
It all started in 2016 when newly elected Sheriff Will Lewis asked Nabors to be his administrative coordinator.
I was on top of the world. I was excited. I was ready to take this new position and do good things for Greenville County and good things for my career. I was told this was a life-changing position, and it was. I was young, and I would say that I was trusting. I was naive.
She says her trust turned into fear. In March of 2017, on a budget trip in Charlotte, Nabors says Lewis sexually assaulted her, something she reiterated on the stand in Lewis's trial. Lewis has maintained his innocence and says their relationship was consensual. Nabors says there was never a consensual relationship.
This was a man that I trusted. I had known him since I was 17. I put so much trust into him that I did think, well, what did I do to make him feel like he could do this? Or why didn't I do this? Or why didn't I say this?
Nabors turned in her resignation just over a month later in April 2017.
When I first left the sheriff's office, I wanted nothing to do with any kind of suit, any kind of accountability. I wanted to leave and leave everything behind me. After seeking, counseling and advice from my family, I realized that if I didn't come forward, this was going to happen again. And then I would have to hold myself accountable for that, for not telling my truth.
She says the cost of telling her truth was more than the material items she lost in the process.
Most people just see that, I lost a car and a phone and a job, but they don't see the things that really mattered and what I lost within myself. I did, have to move away because this was a huge story. I felt for my safety at times. People were mean and harsh, and I have gotten thick skin because of it.
We asked why she filed the lawsuit 6 months after she resigned.
There were months of talking to different people, and this was a high-profile case. So there's plenty of people that just didn't want to get involved. And I don't blame them for that.
She says the reason she pursued a lawsuit was not about getting money. She says it was about holding a powerful person accountable.
This man was not going to be held in this position any longer to be able to do this again.
Nabors says she has no regrets if her story helps others in similar situations speak out.
My biggest thing right now is the project that I'm working on called Speak Now Movement. I have gotten so many messages about my story and how it impacted others. That motivates me to continue sharing my story. I feel like we are closing a chapter of the book. I feel like it'll never really be over, but I feel like we can take the good things and do good things and help people based on what our whole family has been through. Are you happy?
Nabors says her fear has now been fueled and turned into a brand new chapter. She tells me she's planning on getting her master's in counseling so she can go from being a sounding board for similar victims to providing legitimate help. Carrie Weimer, Fox Carolina News.
Now, during his testimony, former Sheriff Will Lewis did admit to having an affair, but throughout the past 2 years has maintained that he's innocent and claims everything that happened was consensual.
It was a series of just bad decisions. It wasn't a series of a setup of events. That's not what happened.
Now you claim everything at that point was then consensual, correct?
Claim
Everything that happened after that within the hotel room was consensual.
that is correct. Everything was consensual.
Lewis was found guilty of misconduct of a public officer. A judge handed down the maximum sentence for this charge, 1 year in prison. Lewis's attorney has filed an appeal claiming the indictment and the statute are too vague. Lewis was being held in Columbia at Kirkland Correctional Facility, but prison officials confirmed over the weekend he has been moved to a facility in North Carolina. There will be a special election to replace Will Lewis. The primary is set for January 7th. The special election is set for March 10th.